everyone. Thank you for joining us on The World Today here on China Global Television Network. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. We begin in China, where the fourth session of the 14th National People's Congress has held its second plenary meeting, attended by Xi Jinping and other party and state leaders. Chairman of the NPC Standing Committee, Zhao Leji, delivered the Standing Committee's work report. Gao Yiming has more.
Chairman of China's National People's Congress Standing Committee Zhao Leji reviewed the work of 2025. Zhao said the NPC Standing Committee has strengthened legislative work to support reform and development through high-quality laws. In economic legislation, the NPC Standing Committee enacted the Private Sector Promotion Law last year, establishing the principles of impartial treatment, fair competition, equal protection, and common development. It also revised the Unfair Competition Law to help promote a credit-based economy. In the area of social governance and public well-being, the NPC Standing Committee enacted the Law on Public Health Emergency Response and revised the Law on the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases. The cybersecurity law was also revised, personal information protection. Environmental protection legislation has also been strengthened, including progress on the Ecological and Environmental Code. Zhao said the NPC Standing Committee has carried out its oversight responsibilities and strengthened supervision within the party and state oversight system.
We strengthened oversight over the implementation of the Constitution and laws and over the work of the State Council, the National Commission of Supervision and the Supreme People's Court and the Supreme People's Procuratorate. The aim is to ensure state institutions exercise their powers and perform their functions in accordance with the law and the people's lawful rights and interests. In particular, their democratic rights are safeguarded and fulfilled.
Zhao also said the NPC Standing Committee has expanded foreign exchanges to support China's overall diplomatic agenda. Looking ahead, he said the NPC Standing Committee will promote high-quality development in the work of people's congresses, contributing their share to a strong start of the 15th five-year plan. He said the NPC will continue improving the socialist legal system with Chinese characteristics.
In our endeavour to advance the rule of law, we will place greater emphasis on aligning it with efforts to deepen reform, promote development and ensure stability, while also paying greater attention to safeguarding and promoting social fairness and justice. With a focus on supporting the implementation of the 15th five-year plan, we'll strengthen legislation in key, emerging and foreign-related areas, striving to enhance the quality of our legislative work.
Gao Yiming, CGTN.
Now, since the third session of the 14th National People's Congress last year, China has made great strides in improving the country's legal system to keep legislation in step with national development. Over the past year, lawmakers deliberated 40 drafts of laws, legal interpretations and decisions, adopting 24 of them. Now, these include 6 new laws, 14 revisions of existing laws, 1 legal interpretation and 3 legal decisions on major issues. Last year's legislative achievements were mainly reflected in 3 key areas. First, improving the legal system for the socialist market economy. Second, promoting legislation in fields concerning people's livelihood, such as public health emergency response, infectious disease prevention and control, as well as food security. And third, optimizing the mechanism of whole process people's democracy. Lawmakers revised legislation to promote the modernization of grassroots governance systems and capacity. Meanwhile, China has also vowed to accelerate the green transition across the board in 2026. with its carbon peaking and neutrality goals guiding integrated efforts to cut emissions, reduce pollution, pursue green development and boost economic growth. A major focus will be improving the environment. The country will push forward with its campaigns for blue skies, clear waters and clean soil. Efforts will also target new pollutants, solid waste treatment and biodiversity protection. Now, to boost the green and low-carbon economy, China will promote zero-carbon industrial parks and factories and establish a national fund for low-carbon transition to foster new growth areas like hydrogen energy. China will also work to peak carbon emissions by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. The national carbon market will be expanded and a stronger push will be made to build a new electric power system for more extensive use of green electricity. Right now, for more on the two sessions events today, let's link up with our reporter Enoch Sikolia, who's in Beijing and live for us this hour. Enoch, quite a lot happening today. Just give us a few of the highlights of the day that you're looking forward to.
Mahia, 3 engagements today. We're talking about 3 reports having been released today. But first, let me talk about the NPC Standing Committee, which released a report on just how they can enhance the work of the deputies, who are the lawmakers. And when we talk about the NPC, which is China's top lawmaking organ, well, authorities say that they are improving the support systems that are revised, for example, under the revised deputies law, to help lawmakers stay closely with the people and also have better represent the citizens' concerns. The NPC also emphasized deeper participation of deputies in legislative work, including attending committees, committee meetings, participating in policy oversight, and contributing to draft laws. Now, something to look at also that came out of that NPC Standing Committee's meeting today, they highlighted China's growing parliamentary engagement with the rest of the world. Over the past year, delegations from the NPC visited dozens of countries and hosted parliamentary representatives here in Beijing as part of broader diplomatic outreach. Now, the other committee report that was released, or the other report that was released, was from the Supreme People's Procuratorate, where China highlighted plans to crack down on telecom fraud with the aim of ensuring that China remains the safest country in the world. Let me give you numbers, Mahia. 41,000 cases involving telecom fraud and related crimes were handled, involving 85,000 individuals, an increase of 1.2%. The 16 ringleaders of the 4 major families crime syndicate in northern Myanmar were sentenced to death and executed according to law. Crimes committed against Chinese citizens abroad will also be punished accordingly, and according to the report that was released today. So the whole essence or the hallmark of that report was that China is putting in place laws that ensure that it remains the safest country to live, work on the planet. Mahia.
All right, Enoch, thank you very much for your insights there. Enoch Sikolia joining us live from Beijing following Monday's deliberations at the 2 sessions. Turning to the Middle East now, where Iran has chosen Mujtaba Khamenei, son of the late Ali Khamenei, as the nation's new supreme leader. Iran's Assembly of Experts made the announcement after a meeting on Sunday. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has pledged allegiance to the new supreme leader. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says the decision is the manifestation of Tehran's will to strengthen national unity. Ehsan Kevani reports now from Yazid in central Iran.
9 days after the former supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was killed in airstrikes carried out by Israel and the United States, Iranian state television has announced a new supreme leader has been chosen. In the early hours of Monday, the 88-member Assembly of Experts elected Mojtaba Khamenei, the second son of the late leader, to serve as the third supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
This assembly, after thorough and extensive deliberations and by utilizing the authority granted under Article 108 of the Constitution, appoints and introduces Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei, may God preserve him, as the third leader of the sacred system of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
According to the Iranian constitution, the supreme leader serves as the country's commander-in-chief, holding authority over the country's foreign policy, armed forces, and various other key state institutions. Iran remains under a steady stream of attacks following decades of direct and indirect confrontation with Israel. During the 9-day interim period, while the country was governed by a temporary leadership council, Iran launched a strong military response to the US and Israeli airstrikes. Iranian forces targeted multiple American military bases across the region and struck Israel with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones. With tensions soaring and regional stability hanging in the balance, all eyes now turn to Tehran to see whether the new supreme leader will chart a path toward escalation or restraint. Ehsan Keibani, CGTN, Yazd.
Meanwhile, huge fires are burning in Tehran after Israeli strikes on Iran's oil storage facilities. Iranian authorities say 4 oil depots and a petroleum logistics site were hit. Israel says it targeted facilities used to support military infrastructure. Residents in Tehran have been warned to take precautions against toxic air and the risk of acid rain. It is the first time Iran's oil infrastructure has been targeted since the US and Israel attacked Iran. Seper Saremi visited one of the damaged oil depots and filed this report.
Authorities here in Tehran are extremely worried about the environmental impact of such explosions on Tehran. The governor of Tehran just announced that the fuel supply network in Tehran has been damaged, and he said the full restoration of this network may take a few days. He also urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel and visits to gas stations unless essential. So I think Tehran will face some difficult days ahead, but the oil ministry is trying hard to restore the full capacity of this city in gas stations and also the relevant organizations. Sefer Saremi, CGTN, Tehran.
Chinese government's special envoy on Middle East issues, Zhai Jun, met with Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud in Riyadh on Sunday. Prince Faisal expressed Saudi Arabia's appreciation for China's consistent efforts to uphold justice. He hoped China will continue to play a role in stopping the war in the Middle East. Zhai Jun said China upholds the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. The sovereignty, security and territorial integrity of Gulf countries are also inviolable. China urges all sides to immediately stop hostilities. China is also ready to work with Saudi Arabia to help maintain peace and stability in the Gulf region. And that's it for this edition of The World Today. I'll be back shortly with more news from the continent in Africa Live. Do stay with us. toll from floods in Kenya's capital rises to 43 as heavy rains batter the wider East African region. African nations activate Middle East evacuation plans as conflict continues between the US, Israel and Iran. And we look at how Sudanese citizens and local groups are filling the humanitarian aid gap as conflict rages on. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Here's what else is coming up. In business, global oil prices surge past $100 for the first time in 4 years as the Middle East conflict intensifies. And in sports, drivers arrive in Kenya ahead of the WRC Safari Rally that begins later this week. We begin right here in Kenya, where the death toll from floods has risen to 43 countrywide. Families are counting their losses after floodwaters swept away homes, farms and vehicles. Heavy rains began on Friday and continued overnight. In Nairobi, the military and police supported emergency services with rescue efforts on Friday night. President William Ruto on Saturday ordered the immediate deployment of a multi-agency emergency response team, as well as the release of relief food. At least 30 people have so far been rescued. The Kenya Meteorological Department warned intense rainfall is expected to continue in most parts of the country, increasing the risk of flooding, swollen rivers and transport disruptions. The current rainy season in Kenya and the wider region is expected to continue until May. The IGAD Climate Prediction and Applications Center predicts wetter than normal conditions across much of the greater Horn of Africa. That includes Uganda, South Sudan and parts of Ethiopia and Somalia. Several governments have already issued alerts for extreme weather conditions. Well, let's get more on this story now. We have Peter Murgor, Disaster Risk Reduction Manager at the Kenya Red Cross. He joins us live via Zoom from Nairobi. Peter, thank you for your time. Why do you think Kenya saw such a high death toll on Friday? And what would you advise people to do in flooding situations to avoid a repeat of what we saw there?
Thank you, Maya, and good afternoon from Nairobi, Kenya here. First of all is that we saw a surface water runoff that was increased and that led to a lot of displacements, led to destruction of infrastructure and even loss of lives. This was mainly contributed by infrastructural challenges, water blockages, and so that instead of water easily flowing away, they sought ways and ended up being destructive. This is one of the reasons. In fact, you might have seen over 9 roads being severely affected. You find areas where there are constructions and walls that have been built and blocked drainages. Hence, water was not otherwise flowing freely when it should have. Hence now piling up and causing havoc.
Right, and of course, this is not just a problem concentrated here in Kenya. Just paint for us a picture of the current situation across the region, and where are we? Where do you see the worst impact of heavy rain so far?
Actually, the most adversely affected currently still stands to be the Nairobi city, and there are other areas, parts of the country that are affected. If we look at Kenya as a country, there are 23 counties affected, leading to a total of 45,003 households displaced, affected generally, with 9,831 that are displaced. You've mentioned the fatalities according to the National Police Service, and of course, we have almost around 71 water infrastructure that are destroyed, 8 missing persons, and then we are seeing also the livelihoods, agricultural lands and crops, almost close to 3,648 acres of lands that are destroyed, with some livestock that is been affected. This really gives you a picture, Maya, of what is going on in the country, that there is destruction that is adverse, that is being witnessed. Of course, there are other parts of the country in the western region, in the central province, places like Tana River, where we have a dam and it's downstream that is likely to experience a lot. If you think about places like Kitui, Makueni, Voi, Tito Andei, Machakos, very many parts of Kenya actually are likely to witness, and the coastal strip, they're likely to witness continued flooding for a few days to come. Thank you.
Right, and we're just not out of the woods yet, Peter. Looking ahead, how best can authorities and agencies prepare to deal with what's happening now and what may come in the next few weeks?
Well, the first thing is to make sure that the infrastructure is being made ready to anticipate this. Drainages need to be cleared. Waterways need to be cleared very fast to make sure that when the rains come and when the water starts piling up, surface runoff water can find their way to wherever they need to go, to the riparian land, so that at least it does not become destructive. And then early warning information. The Kenya Meteorological Department has done a very good job by releasing very good predictive early warning information and advisories. We just need to collaborate as agencies to make sure that this information is cascading down to the lowest level. As the citizenry, Kenyans also need to heed early warning information as and when it is given, and that we need now to be alert. Things like electricity needs to be switched off. Vehicles should not get into areas, into any flooded areas, because there is the risk of being swept away. So there's just the need for collaboration from all angles, from the citizenry, from the government, from stakeholders, national and NGOs and humanitarian agencies to collaborate and to try and make sure that we are preparing and being ready for the floods that are likely to increase over the coming days.
All right, Peter, thank you very much for your time and for speaking to us here on Africa Live. Disaster Risk Reduction Manager Peter Murgor with the Kenya Red Cross, speaking to us from here in Nairobi. Moving on, as Sudan's conflict approaches its third anniversary, the United Nations is warning of rising humanitarian needs. This follows a UN humanitarian response plan which estimates that 33.7 million people in Sudan will need aid this year. That is 3.3 million more than 2025. Now, about 29 million people face severe food insecurity, and 23 areas are at risk of famine or already experiencing it. Now, the conflict that began in April 2023 has so far led to displacements of some 9.1 million people. Meanwhile, the government maintains that food supplies remain under control, raising concerns about the country's future food security. While Sudan's war continues to force millions from their homes, while international aid struggles to keep up with the growing humanitarian need. But across the country, local neighborhood groups are stepping in to fill the gap, providing shelter, food and hope for thousands of displaced families. CGTN's Sharon Baranga reports on how communities are mobilizing to support those affected by the conflict.
Across Sudan, the war has displaced millions of people. Many have settled in humanitarian camps around the country where they are getting security and aid. But these are full and several are underfunded. So in other places, community volunteers are stepping in to fill the gap. They are working together to organize food, shelter, and emergency supplies for those who have lost everything.
We were able to shelter 490 families and are currently sheltering more than 900 children. We provide 3 meals a day, biscuits and rice for the children and meals for adults.
The volunteers say they have also distributed essential supplies, including blankets and tarpaulins, to protect people from the harsh weather.
We have provided approximately 2,000 blankets, heaters and tarpaulins to protect displaced people from the rain.
For many families living in the shelters, daily life remains uncertain.
We are sitting in the open. It rains in the evening and is sunny during the day. We have suffered deeply. I hope the war will stop and that people will return to their homes and that peace, security and stability will prevail.
Despite losing homes, loved ones and livelihoods, many displaced people say their greatest wish is simply to return home.
Right now we want security, safety and stability, and we want to return to our homes. We don't want anything else.
Local initiatives alongside humanitarian organizations are providing critical assistance.
From the first day we entered the shelter, neighborhood residents and organizations like We Are All Values, Sudan 0S, UNICEF and the World Health Organization helped us a lot.
We received assistance from civil society organizations as well as United Nations organizations and the Ministry of Health. They helped us and our situation is good now.
Groups like For Coast, Kulmakim and We Are All Values have been providing meals and shelter for hundreds of thousands of displaced people since the conflict began in April 2023. But 8 groups warn the crisis is worsening. The United Nations has cut its humanitarian appeal to $23 billion following major reductions in funding from Western donors. Meanwhile, the conflict between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces continues, spreading across the country and deepening one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. More than 150,000 people have been killed and over 30 million now need humanitarian assistance. Children remain among the most vulnerable. According to UNICEF, more than 1 million children live in areas already experiencing famine and hundreds of thousands face severe malnutrition. For now, these grassroots efforts remain a crucial lifeline for displaced families, even as Sudan's war shows little sign of ending. Sharon Baranga, CGTN.
And staying in Sudan, where the work of rebuilding continues in the capital Khartoum, where the UN says over 1.3 million people have returned to their homes. Authorities have reported progress in recent months as they work to improve living conditions, but still challenges remain. CGTN's David Mbithi with more on that now.
The scars of war are still evident in many parts of the Sudanese capital, 11 months since the army wrestled back Khartoum from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The daunting task of rebuilding has been slowly progressing as more returnees continue streaming in.
The war has profoundly impacted Khartoum state. The indiscriminate bombing by the Rapid Support Forces, targeting industrial areas, institutions and infrastructure, has significantly contributed to pollution. During the bombing of the Al Jaili refinery, there was major air pollution.
Even state institutions that serve to protect human health and the environment were affected. Officials say the only environmental laboratory in the capital was destroyed and vandalized, and the cost of reconstruction will exceed $500,000. Before the conflict, it analyzed treated wastewater, monitored White Nile water quality, and tested bottled water from local factories.
The environmental laboratory suffered complete and total destruction as a result of the building being burned, equipment being damaged, theft, and other factors.
Cleanup campaigns have been underway in Khartoum, focusing on waste removal and environmental sanitation. On top of sewage, the Nile River and waterways were polluted from the dumping of decomposing bodies.
There was significant environmental pollution. The water was contaminated with sewage, which was extremely bad, but people were forced to drink it. You're forced to drink the water. The situation is much better now. The militias have left. People have returned to their normal lives and the water is safe again.
Experts say the 3 cities of Khartoum, Omdurman and Bari, which make up the capital area, will require an extensive environmental survey after warring parties used prohibited weapons in residential areas. The government is still working to improve safety conditions across the state.
They have identified all the destroyed vehicles in the streets and moved them to designated areas. They have also removed debris using specialized incinerators, as well as mines, hazardous materials, bodies and other refuse.
The UN Migration Agency says over 1.3 million people have made the journey back to Khartoum in the last several months. Many of them are families with children, with an estimated 55% of returnees said to be minors. David Mbithi, CGTN.
Now, as tensions escalate following US and Israeli attacks on Iran, several African countries are preparing contingency plans to evacuate their citizens from the Middle East. CGTN's Robert Nagila looks at the evacuation response across the continent.
As US and Israeli missiles struck targets in Iran, Tehran responded by targeting American and Israeli interests across the Middle East. Between March 2nd and March 7th, a number of African countries began evacuating or making arrangements to airlift their citizens from the region. Ghana was among the first to announce it had activated an emergency evacuation plan for its nationals from the Middle East if necessary. A travel advisory issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on March 2nd said authorities were assessing the evacuation needs of its citizens. The ministry also announced the evacuation of several staff members from its embassy in Tehran. 4 days after the US and Israel launched attacks against Iran, Uganda's Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced it had evacuated 42 students from Tehran to Turkey by road as the conflict escalated. The ministry advised Ugandan nationals still in the country to await further communication from the embassy. By March 4th, as several Gulf countries briefly reopened their airspace, South Africa advised its citizens to leave the region using available commercial flights. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation said more than 6,400 South African nationals had registered with official channels. Zambia's foreign ministry, meanwhile, announced it had begun the process of evacuating its citizens from the Middle East. Zambian embassies were directed to register nationals and submit evacuation plans to the government. On March 6th, Kenya, which has more than 500,000 nationals working across the Middle East, advised those wishing to return home to use available commercial airlines or licensed travel agents. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs also urged Kenyans to register with embassies in their respective countries. Meanwhile, other governments across Africa say they are closely monitoring the situation while preparing further support and advice for their citizens. Robert Nagela, CGTN.
All right, it's time for a short break. Here's what's coming up on Africa Live Business. Global oil prices surge past $100 for the first time in 4 years as the Middle East conflict intensifies. And Burkina Faso unveils its $64 billion economic transformation plan. Oil prices surged around 25% to their highest since mid-2022, with Brent on track for a record one-day gain, while gold fell 2% as an escalating Iran war squeezed world energy supplies, boosted the dollar and dampened hopes of interest rate cuts. Agriculture markets, led by edible oils, rose as they took their cue from oil prices due to the extensive use of vegetable oils in making biofuels. Aluminum firmed on supply worries even as other metals faced headwinds from a stronger dollar. Brent was on track for its biggest one-day gain ever in both percentage and absolute terms as the expanding US-Israeli war with Iran led some major Middle East oil producers to cut supplies and on fears of prolonged disruption to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz choke point. Iranian authorities, meanwhile, warn residents to take precautions against air pollution and the risk of acid rain after Israeli strikes on Tehran's 4 oil storage tankers and a petroleum terminal. Seper Saremi has more now from the Iranian capital.
Authorities here in Tehran are extremely worried about the environmental impact of such explosions on Tehran. The governor of Tehran just announced that the fuel supply network in Tehran has been damaged, and he said the full restoration of this network may take a few days. He also urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel and visits to gas stations unless essential. So I think Tehran will face some difficult days ahead, but the oil ministry is trying hard to restore the full capacity of this city in gas stations and also the relevant organizations. Sefer Saremi, CGTN, Tehran.
Now let's take you to Burkina Faso, which has adopted a new $64 billion national development plan. The 5-year roadmap is aimed at reshaping the economy, strengthening stability and promoting inclusive growth. Now, the plan represents a sharp increase from the previous framework, with an average annual budget of about $12.7 million, reflecting the country's renewed focus on economic transformation. Now, investment spending, including capital transfers, accounts for 34.5% of the total budget. while additional financing needs are projected at 30.3% of the plan's cost. The strategy is structured around 4 priorities: enhancing security and social cohesion, reforming the state and governance, developing human capital, and expanding infrastructure to support long-term economic growth. Over in South Africa, the country's largest sugar milling company could soon be forced into liquidation. Tongaat Hewlett, founded in 1892, has been under business rescue for nearly 3 years after an accounting scandal left the company with billions of dollars in debt. Now, after a proposed rescue deal collapsed, the future of thousands of workers and farmers who rely on the company hangs in the balance. Sumitra Naidu now reports.
For more than a century, Tongaat Hewlett has been at the centre of South Africa's sugar industry. The company's milling and refinery assets are critical to the country's sugarcane value chain. But the company is on the brink of collapse after attempts to restructure its debt failed. A consortium of investors had proposed a takeover that could have kept the mills operating and saved thousands of jobs. For farmers who rely on Tongaat's mills to process their sugarcane, the impact could be immediate.
Tongaat Hewlett were to liquidate, it would mean the end of our businesses as we know it, and I'm talking about everyone that grows sugarcane in this region. We would be looking at thousands, up to 40,000 people who get employed on farms directly being unemployed, people getting unemployed in supporting industries.
The Cane Growers Association represents over 27,000 small-scale farmers and over 100,000 large-scale growers, all depending on getting their harvests to Tongaat Hewlett for processing.
This has put me through a lot because I've lost 70%, which means I no longer have income to support my family. If ever they are closing the company, that will be the end of many families. This doesn't only affect staff, but it affects family members too.
The entire sugarcane industry depends on Tongaat Hewlett. If the company goes into liquidation, the entire value chain will collapse.
If we don't have a mill opening soon in April, as we were expecting with the new harvesting season approaching, it has huge consequences to not just myself and my own household, but all the people that work for me and all the people that contract for me as well. There's many interconnected work opportunities that will be lost. We are very reliant on the mills opening up as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will not be able to sustain operations on our farms much longer.
The Trade and Industry Minister Parks Tau has stepped in to stop the liquidation and is in discussions with all interested parties with the hope of finding some resolution to this crisis. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, South Africa.
Now, over in Côte d'Ivoire, more women are turning to rubber farming to gain financial independence. As CGTN's Najma Abdirizak reports, a new initiative is helping them overcome traditional barriers to land ownership there.
Afume once worked on the family rubber plantation, inherited from her father. But she received only small shares of the income, while her brothers controlled the rest.
It's our inheritance for all of us. But when we were done, I worked with my brothers and I saw that what they gave me were just crumbs. That's why I decided to set up my own plantation.
Today, she runs her very own plantation. The 64-year-old bought her land with help from subsidies provided by the Association of Natural Rubber Professionals of Côte d'Ivoire. It's a program that offers women discounted rubber plants to start their own operations.
I am really independent and free because I know that what I'm doing is for myself. And it's me who has done my thing, so it's for myself. So really, I am happy and I am free.
Other women are following the same path. Solange Kwaku used the same subsidies to plant her hectare. She says she now has a reliable monthly income.
Thanks to my plantation, at the end of every month, I earn 70,000 CFA francs. I'm like a civil servant. My life has really changed because of this plantation, and it's because of it that other women want to grow rubber trees this year as well.
Across the region, cultural traditions in some areas still prevent women from inheriting land directly. Jacqueline Guesan represents women rubber producers, and on their behalf, she negotiates with village leaders and husbands to secure them access.
There are places where girls are not allowed to inherit land, and when that's the case in those places, it's difficult. In these areas, it's also difficult, and we have to. How can we solve this problem? Because we can't just leave these women like that. So now we have to move on to another phase of negotiation. Either we negotiate with the landowners, the village chiefs, the traditional leaders. We negotiate with their husband so that they give a small portion or a portion to their wives.
APROMAC has supported women in rubber cultivation since 2009. Thousands have benefited from these subsidies since, helping narrow the gap where only 5% of women own agricultural land compared to 25% of men. Najma Abdirizak, CGTN.
Now, the two sessions is a chance for the Chinese government to set out its plans and priorities for the next year. But planning for the future in today's world is no easy task, especially with an ever-changing tariff regime from the United States. Our Vivian Nunes reports on how the Chinese economy is adapting to an increasingly turbulent landscape for global trade.
Here at the Great Hall of the People, the National People's Congress is largely focused on domestic priorities. But external pressures, including tariffs, are never far from the discussion.
Global economic momentum remains sluggish, while multilateralism and free trade are under severe threat.
The external environment is worsening with greater instability. There is no upper limit on the uncertainty we will see each year.
Over the past year, many countries have faced the uncertainty of Washington's tariff regime. Chinese businesses and the global corporations operating here are no exception.
For companies that operate across borders, the uncertainty is often more of a challenge than the tariffs themselves.
By being local in China, we obviously are working very hard that we can avoid, hopefully, tariffs going forward. But again, this is only partially true because at the end of the day, it's a global product and certain things simply come from the US, as the aviation industry is a global industry. So to a certain point, there's an element where you cannot really de-risk for, where you can just only work on the fact, again, to say is that the success of aviation is that it is a global industry, and we're asking everybody to recognize that.
So what is China's strategy in the face of tariff uncertainty? Well, what I'm seeing at China's top political gathering going on just behind me is this. Number one, diversification. China has diversified its export destinations. While in 2025, China's exports to the US dropped by nearly 20%, overall exports increased by 6.1%, yielding a record surplus of $1.2 trillion. And Southeast Asia is now China's largest trading partner.
We have shown strong resilience in foreign trade. When the West is dark, East remains bright. When the North is dark, South shines.
Second, internal demand. China is continuing to shift its economy away from exports and is boosting domestic consumption, particularly in services.
In terms of service consumption, key areas include transportation, housekeeping, online audio-visual services, residential tourism, the automotive aftermarket, and inbound tourism. Among these, 3 hold significant potential: performances, sports events, and experiential services.
We see the emphasis on strengthening of demand and consumption, stable economy, technological and industrial upgrading, opening up in services and innovation sectors. Those are all positive messages for business, and Australian companies are definitely focused on those.
And third is upgrading. China is making a huge push to enhance global competitiveness through tech innovation and industrial upgrades.
In terms of high-quality development, we can make technological breakthroughs that will enhance traditional medicine if we upgrade our resources and technology in this field. China will surely usher in a better spring.
In the face of global uncertainty sparked by US tariffs, China and these NPC deputies coming out beside me are focused on building self-reliance, encouraging domestic consumption, modernising industry and strengthening economic ties with countries large and small. Vivienne Nunes, CGTN, at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing.
Right now it's time for the latest in sport. Here is your headline. Drivers arrive in Kenya ahead of the WRC Safari Rally that kicks off later this week.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa. So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference. How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Right, let's begin with motorsport, where the world's top rally drivers have been arriving in Kenya for the next stop in the World Rally Championship. The Kenya Safari Rally is the third of 14 legs in a competition that began in Monaco in January and ends in Saudi Arabia in November. Now, Kenyans had a chance to meet and greet some of the drivers who will be taking part next week, including the current championship leader, Elfyn Evans. The Welshman won here last year en route to finishing second in the overall championship. All the action will take place around the town of Naivasha, around 90 kilometers north of Nairobi, with a shakedown scheduled for Thursday.
Yeah, of course we're not to see the recce yet, so we're not fully aware of what conditions we're going to face. I mean, it's, by the sounds of it, it's been pretty wet in the lead up to the rally, so yeah, the recce will be quite important to take good notes and of course to try and get a lie of the land, but yeah, until then, it's difficult to predict too much.
In athletics, Uganda's Jacob Kiplimo has regained the world half-marathon record. The 25-year-old, who specializes in cross-country running, completed the course in Lisbon on Sunday in a time of 57 minutes and 27 seconds. It was enough to shave 10 seconds off the previous record of Ethiopia's Yomif Kejelcha and reclaim a title he last held in 2021. Kiplimo ran the distance in 56 minutes and 42 seconds in Barcelona last year, but that time was not ratified by World Athletics due to illegal pacing assistance. Now, Kenya's Nicholas Kipkorir and Gilbert Kiprotich joined the Ugandan on the podium in Lisbon. As many as 15 Kenyans have won the New York Marathon, starting with Ibrahim Hussein back in 1987. The now 67-year-old was recently honored by the New York Roadrunners delegation that arrived from the United States. Hussein was among the first wave of Africans to win major global marathons. For more on his achievements and legacy, CGTN's Mohamed Abubakar had a chance to meet him in the heart of Kenyan athletics, Eldoret.
I would say I was very lucky because my time there were very few marathon athletes. And I took the marathon running before any serious Kenyan took the marathon. So I was very lucky, ran in the late 80s, won very big marathons. When I ran, it inspires a lot of athletes from Kenya because they saw that this Ibrahim was not a great athlete and he has won big marathons. I think we should also try. So I think I'm a pioneer And I'm so grateful for that.
You're the World Athletics Regional Development Director. What does that entail?
The Regional Development Center for World Athletics, this is a center which trains coaches, they train technical officials, and also they train federation officials. Once the federations elect themselves, World Athletics come through us to train them how to run their offices. So it's not only training the ITOs, it's training the coaches. So I was put there, I'm almost like an headmaster of a school. Yeah? There was a training we did, which was a camp for the steeplechasers. So we bring a coach and an athlete to come and train them, train the coach how to coach, and also have the athlete as a demonstrator. We brought guys from Ethiopia, we brought from Uganda. They came and they had 1 week training, and when they went back, the 2 athletes who came to our camp and the coach, they have gone ahead and beaten the Kenyans. They went and beat the Kenyans. The coach who came here now is one of the best steeplechase coaches. So I know it's negative a little bit for the Kenyan, because I'm a Kenyan, but for Africa it has really done very well.
Ibrahim, what do you miss most about being a professional athlete?
Being a professional, it's funny because I know people, most of the people will say they miss competing. They miss when they go and compete and winning, losing, coming in the middle. But the thing I missed the most was my training part. Although it was the most difficult, but I trained a lot in Albuquerque, a place in New Mexico in the U.S. So I miss that. But although I miss also, when you're competing, you get an opportunity to travel a lot and learn a lot.
Finally, Ibrahim, what would you advise the current long-distance greats to do to develop the sport and also inspire new champions?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, because I think, you see, when an athlete is on top, most of the time when we are on top, we tend to not think we are going to retire. Yeah? So everything, and we are pampered. People really take us, you are respected, idolized, and all that. But you see, once you retire, you are alone. There are other champions who will come and they will erase what you have done. So you can break a world record today, but tomorrow another guy will break a world record, and that's the star. So I think we need to take serious how you build your base in preparation for your retirement.
Well, Ibrahim Kipkemboi Hussein retired as one of the most decorated marathoners at a time when Africans were just beginning to show the world their true potential in long-distance running. Hussein paved the way for unrivaled Kenyan dominance at international marathons, with his countrymen dominating the 6 world marathon majors each year. Let's now take a look at his biodata and his most outstanding achievements. In England, there was a major shock in the FA Cup on Sunday as Premier League side Fulham were knocked out by a late penalty from Southampton. The Cottagers thought they had the lead in the first half, only for the goal to be ruled out on a technicality. Now, the ball was judged to have been still rolling when the play had restarted. The game looked destined for extra time, only for the referee to award a penalty in the dying moments. Ross Stewart made no pin, still rolling when the play had restarted. The game looked destined for extra time, only for the referee to award a penalty in the dying moments. Ross Stewart made no mistake from the spot. 1-0 is how it ended in London, and it is the EFL Championship side that moves into the quarter-finals.